All right, I think we should start. So before we actually start, I would like to tell you that I would like to do an experiment throughout this talk with you. I thought that since this is a talk about gamification, let's try and gamify that talk a little. So who of you actually does not like to play games? Do we have anyone here who actually does not like to play any games? Okay, one. That's great. So all of you are potential players in this experiment. So I would say you are at a good position. Take that. You're at a good position. And maybe one of the guys behind you also wants to play. Don't shoot yet, please. You need the ammunition. So maybe you? Okay. So you're now equipped. Every one of you should now have one of these. And I don't have an arrow anymore, but that doesn't matter. I think you figure out. Don't shoot yet. You need the ammunition. Okay. So the idea is to raise your attention throughout my talk. So you are allowed to shoot me, actually, throughout the talk. However, only if you discover a typo on the slides. If I say anything related to shooting, like aiming, firing, triggering, I don't know, anything you have a direct relation to the topic of shooting, or when you think I'm completely wrong and say something completely stupid, however, you have to back that up. Okay, so that doesn't count yet. I will just demonstrate quickly how it works. You did it quite well, actually. Put the arrow on the pistol and then press the handle very firmly. And yeah, we will see how this will turn out. I didn't know how the room would look like, so I choose you, which are quite close, and I will not hide the whole talk behind here. So I will try to expose myself a little, but I also will try to dodge. So unjustified hits won't count. Please count for yourself how many hits you will gather throughout the talk. And the winner will not only win this really nice cup, but also will have the first pick from my cool Togo bag here. So everyone will be a winner in the end, but you will have the first pick. Okay, any questions related to this gamified approach? Okay, so let's actually start. Gamification. Should I gamify my Eclipse application? So who of you, oh, my name is Robert, by the way, from Autonomy. Who of you actually asked him or herself this question before, honestly? Okay, less than half. And has any one of you ever applied gamification so far? Also less than half. Okay, so that's not bad or anything, because we're making our way through the land of gamification together, and this is somehow the path I want to go with you. Eventually we want to go to the Tower of Epiphany here. I don't know if we all going to make it, but we'll try. We start at the landing shores and make our way up to some examples to just look at how gamification is applied so far. And sooner or later, we have to cross the definitions river. There's a lot of people trying to define what gamification is, and eventually, we also want to answer that question. This is the first question I want to answer today. What is gamification? Then secondly, I think most of you are here because of the question, why should I care, right? So I hope that we can answer that afterwards. And finally, we again look at some examples and try to figure out what are actually dangers and also what is the potential of gamification in order to somehow get this enlightenment in the end. So what is gamification? So for me, and basically for most of the people right now, it's a buzzword, right? There's a lot of hype going on, and taking a look at the Google trend that shows that the term basically didn't exist before the end of 2010. And I argue that most of the things that we apply in gamification exist much longer than that. So, okay, it is a buzzword, but this is also something good because it somehow fosters the discussion that is going on, and we somehow try to master this and really come up with good solutions. And also you get talks accepted, thanks to that term. Some of you might know Gartner with this hype cycle, which actually is not a cycle thing. They recently published an estimation where they say that by 2040, they think 80% of current gamified applications will fail to meet business objectives, primarily due to poor design. And I don't think that these 80% are the most interesting part here, but that they actually give a reason for their estimation: poor design. And I think that correlates also to the fact that the term gamification is not that much liked right now by many people. There are actually not many people who like this term that much, because what they relate to gamification is throwing points, badges, and awards to a service or to an application, and that's it. Okay, we'll just go on. Just like nothing happened. Jesse Shell tweeted last week actually about it, and he quoted Ian Bogost. You might not know these guys very well if you're not in the gaming context, but these are quite famous and I think intelligent people. And Ian Bogost gave a keynote on gamification last week where he said, gamification is a brilliant term because it makes game design sound easy. And this also correlates to this poor design thing. And I mean, he means that in a sarcastic way, right? He's actually criticizing what is going on in the gamification world right now. And yeah, what I want to show you is that gamification actually does not just equal badges. And in my opinion, just applying badges equals poor design. So what is gamification? Let's have a look at some examples. When I speak of poor design, I don't mean something like this. I met this guy in Vancouver 2 years ago when I just heard a keynote on gamification and walked down the road and thought about, okay, what did Glenn Antis actually mean by gamification? I didn't get that. And then I saw this guy and thought, man, you should have a beer with Glenn, right? Because this is actually a very perfect example of gamification. It's accessible, everyone suddenly relates to one of the team, to the competition. And if you look a little bit closer, you see that the man even got a Corona Extra box while the woman got the sparkling water box. We will come back to that example a little bit later again. Something most of you probably know is Stack Overflow, right? You know it probably better than me. But there's this reputation system. It's a Q&A platform, and you can earn your reputation by, which is indicated a little bit here, by giving good answers, and the community is able to vote up whether something is a good comment or not. And by this, we like to come back to this platform because all of a sudden there's this quality, and we know we can somehow refer to people who know what they're talking about. And I think the platform would work without the reputation system, but I think it works better with it. Somehow the stereotype example for a gamified approach in terms of just throwing badges at people is Foursquare. Who of you have checked in on Foursquare here for EclipseCon? None? Okay, so let me tell you that I think that this is actually not that of a good design, but it still has 30 million users right now. So maybe it's not that poor design. But just to give you some more numbers, every one of you have heard of WeFit, right? It was released in April, May 2008, depending on which part on Earth you live. And it made a revenue of $2 billion and sold more than, or almost 23 million copies by now. And I didn't see that coming as it was announced, that it will be so successful. Another example that always strikes me, who of you is geocaching guy, girl? Okay. It's because going for a walk is more exciting when there's a treasure chest at the end, right? That's how Jesse Shell phrased it. And when we take a look at all these examples, which are basically going places, like Foursquare or geocaching or exercising or helping strangers, I would argue that none of these would be filed under entertainment, engaging activities by many people. But still, these examples kind of are engaging to us, and we do this more or less by ourselves, right? So I don't take credit for this kind of definition, and we're just about to cross that river. I try to compile several definitions that are out there, and I think it's kind of handy to say that gamification is the application of game thinking and game mechanics in non-gaming contexts to improve user engagement. Now, what does that mean? When I say game thinking, what is that? We have to be aware of the fact that right now we live in a world where we already have like 3 generations that grew up with games as one of their primal forms of entertainment. And I would argue that the current kids that go to school actually are surrounded by games everywhere, and games is their primal form of entertainment. And this changes. Is it still on? Somewhat. It's not? Okay. Anybody sees me there in the camera? It's not on anymore? I don't want to stand here actually and use this microphone, but can you hear me when I speak like this? Okay, let me know when I get... okay, it's back. Great. Okay, this game thinking, this actually changes how we perceive the world and how we expect things to work, how we decide what we like and what we don't like. And also, how we consider things to be fun and not to be fun. And this is why I say that gamification is not only strongly related to human-centered design. Actually, I think that games are the first industry that kind of mastered the topic of human-centered design, because everything that is in a game is just there to please the human that plays it, or to please the player, to engage the player to play on. And this is why I say that gamification is contemporary human-centered design for me. I don't say it's the only form of contemporary human-centered design, but it's one form. And this kind of answers already the second question, right? Because I assume that all of you are building software for contemporary users and not for people that lived 40 years ago or something. Game mechanics, I don't actually like that term that much, because mechanics is kind of, not that easy to understand in this context, because it refers for me more to mechanisms actually. So you can think of it like everything that is in the game to improve this user engagement, to entertain. So it might be nice graphics, might be even a good story, or might be nice jumping or firing mechanics. Okay, it's kind of hard to hit, I'm sorry. You still will get prizes. Okay, and games, in terms of improve user engagement, they stop at this entertainment point, right? A game doesn't actually have any other goal than entertain. Gamification does not. With this improved user engagement, gamification aims at changing behavior, developing skills, come closer, and even enabling innovation in some cases. And we will have a look at some examples for all of these. Actually, what we are doing here is changing your behavior by listening to me. So what is it then that games make so appealing to us when it's not about badges and leaderboards? Take a look at this guy. You might have seen the picture before. It's a photograph by Philip Toledano, who allowed me to use it. He photographed different gamers while they were playing games. And this guy, he's not looking at the badge for checking in at Starbucks the 3rd time in a row, right? And he's not looking at the leaderboard where he just moved up 1 step. This guy is what gamers call on the verge to an epic win. Have you heard of an epic win? Something so cool, you didn't even imagine that it would be possible. And take a look at this immense concentration on what's going on there, and some kind of fear even maybe in his eyes, and disbelief. And I think, wouldn't it be cool if our software would, at least for a small amount, also reach these kind of emotions for our users? I think it would be really cool. So for me, and you might disagree, but I think we like to play games because as human beings, we like to experience stories. We also like to solve problems. Actually, we're problem-solving machines, and games are problem-solving environments which allow us to do that. So this is why we like them so much. And we are also very social individuals that like to share our achievements, at least if they're worth sharing, right? We like to cooperate and compete. Actually, men like more to compete and women like more to cooperate, but that's a totally different story. And we all like to win. Everyone who says he or she doesn't like to win is a liar. So don't get me wrong here, badges are not necessarily a bad thing, and I consider them part of games and gamification. But I consider them really as something to communicate between the game and us, what we achieved, and to communicate our achievements to other players. And good design is there to that we really want to make sure that the good design needs to make sure that we want to drive that vehicle, actually. Zickerman goes even a step further. He says, and it kind of scares me actually, that games are the only force in the known universe that can achieve this, that you do something against your initial interest without forcing you to do it, and that the outcome is predictable. Maybe some of you know anything else that can achieve that. I don't. And taking again a look at this guy, I mean, as I was walking down the street, I hadn't had the intention to give a stranger money. Not at all. He didn't force me to do it. He just was actually standing there with a sign. And as I decided to join the game or the competition, the outcome was very predictable for him. No matter how I was going to play, even if I decide to put my money in the women tray, the outcome for him is the same, so it doesn't matter. So it's predictable, unforced, and against my initial interest. And I couldn't imagine a thing that he could have done to achieve the same, but wearing such a sign. And this is really the power of games, and why shouldn't we facilitate that in our services and our products? But how are we going to do that? Again, I'm referring to someone who's much more into that topic than me, and if you ever have the chance to talk to Sebastian Dederding, you should do it. Look at his talks, and he's really a smart guy, and he says, this poor design discussion and why so many people are bragging about gamification is basically because these three things are mostly missing: meaning, mastery, and autonomy. What is meaning? It's how to make the activity connect to us as users in a meaningful way. And how we can or let's just hold in for a second. So for example, Foursquare. Many people I know quit Foursquare because they noticed, okay, there's not much more than the badges there. When you take away the badges, Foursquare is nothing, right? I mean, there's this mayorship thing, but even that is more or less only an award. When you take a look at Stack Overflow, when you take away the reputation system, it still provides meaning, and what has been done there is meaningful for a whole community. And so you might even come back if there is nothing like this reputation system. Personalization is, or more general, customization is a very good way to achieve this meaning and to provide meaning. I mean, Weight Watchers, imagine they would tell you, based on your BMI, how much pounds you should lose in the next weeks. This wouldn't be very engaging for you. Instead, you can set your own goals and use the point system of Weight Watchers in order to achieve that. There's a very high autonomy also here, and again, this personalization. This personal goals must not necessarily be something that you designed. It might also come from the community, so that the community, which knows the domain you're in and you're related to, comes up with their own achievements and with their own goals you wanna achieve. So also community-driven goals might be a very good way in order to raise the meaning. But there might also be pro-social goals, which not relate to something directly for you, but for a greater good. Do you know Foldit? Any one of you have heard of it? Okay. They achieved something very cool. This is a very easy interface in order to fold proteins. And folding proteins does not sound fun, right? But this very accessible interface allows you to participate in folding proteins, and by folding proteins, you contribute to complex science questions. So for example, for like 15 years, there was this problem of deciphering a monkey virus which can cause AIDS to people. And scientists haven't been able to fold a protein in a way that they were able to decipher this virus. Guess how long it took players, non-scientists, of Foldit to decipher the virus by folding the protein right? It took them 10 days. After 10 days, they came up with a solution, even though they were no scientists. Now, even if you consider this a lucky shot, yeah, we're getting closer. Then, yeah, consider it only was possible because of the fact of this application, right? Without it, non-scientists wouldn't have been able to even think about it. So I think that's actually some really cool example. Okay, meaningful community, we already had that, but also meaningful story. So when I take a look at games nowadays, lock and load, okay. They're not the best stories. Basically what they say is, you are Bruce Willis, only you can save the world, right? But this provides enough meaning for us to be more engaged. When I tell you your duty is to prevent the purple, blue, and green pixels to reach the bottom, they will move down, and you have to navigate white pixels upwards in order to prevent that. That's not very engaging, but when I tell you it's about an alien invasion and only you, I mean you are Bruce Willis, right? So only you can save Earth from destruction. Then this is kind of engaging. But there are dangers. This is an example from Ford Fusion, where they more or less put a pet inside your car. This small leaves here, I don't know if you recognize it, is a small plant. And the idea was to change the behavior of the drivers by the more efficient they drive, the more leaves will grow. And when they don't drive efficiently, the plant will die. What do you think would happen? No, actually not. People were so engaged that they didn't stop on red lights anymore because it's not that efficient to stop and start again. So the meaning totally grew out of any perspective, right? And this is a danger. I mean, the intention was great from the designers. I mean, that's a good thing. And none of them even thought about something like this going to happen. Okay. So be wary of this emergent behavior that might appear. And this is also a very good example that shows that game design or UX design is nothing that is easy. So the second thing that often misses is mastery. Many people consider games like being some kind of Skinner box. So you do something, when you do it the right way, you get the cookie, and then you do it again and get another cookie, right? If this would be true, then this would be the greatest game ever. Progress Wars. Basically, it's Mafia Wars, right? Perform a mission by clicking on the bottom and fill up the progress bar, and then you get to the next level, and hopefully, or at least for me, it's not a very engaging game. And instead, I think when we talk about mastery, it's actually very interesting what Ralph Costa said. Fun is just another word for learning. And we want to have challenging challenges And what I mean by that, we will have a look in a second, but it's really about a process of getting better and master something, then having this highly rewarding moment, and afterwards experience this way of mastery. So learning is the drug. How can we achieve that? We need to create challenging challenges in gamified approaches. When you think of Foursquare, it's not very challenging. You're just go places. I mean, I don't know how so many people are into that for so long. For some reason, they are. When you think of golf, the goal is to put the ball in the hole. That would be very easy if I just go there and put the ball in the hole But fortunately, we also have rules. All of a sudden, I have to hit the ball with this weird stick, and I have to start right over there. And I only allowed to, I don't know, carry like 9 clubs or something like that. So this is how we can create challenging challenges. Really, that's something that engages us. What games also do very good is they do not only provide one goal, which is far, far away, but they provide structured goal and create these subsequent goals which we can perceive very easily and which we can grab and achieve in a very quick way, and then immediately see the next goal. And this is how we iteratively eventually end up at the final goal. So a structured flow is something you might consider when you design your gamified application or service. Then we have these scaffolded challenges. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the name is the hardest part of it, came up with the theory of flow. You might have heard of that already. And he says, and as programmers you might know that there's this flow where we can get in and be really productive and really shut off from the world where we are disconnect and just work and just play and just do, and we are very satisfied, and it's a very good feeling actually. And games, as I already said, do not this in a linear way, but they are more or less providing and trying to be inside the flow in a way like this. So you have failure. Remember the talk, the keynote yesterday, failure is something that can be really engaging and drives us to mastery. And then at some point we need to still master the problem. And this is this highly rewarding spot I talked about. And afterwards, when we beat the boss, we really can kick ass for some time and feel like the masters of the universe. But then again, it's getting harder and harder, and over time, the challenges really need to add up. So varied pacing, varied challenges, varied complexity. And of course, this excessive positive feedback we get when we just won a challenge or solved a puzzle, then we get feedback acoustically, visual, or in some other way, might be badges. So are there any dangers? Of course. Also, emergent behavior might appear when we want to master something. We start to cheat. Some of us more explicitly, others more subtle. And also, emergent behavior is something like this that wasn't intended by the guys who designed Foursquare. Do you know Mayor Maker? It basically plays Foursquare for you. You don't have to check in manually, you just go places. And it makes sure that you check in at the places. And when you checked in the most time of your friends, then you become the mayor of that place. This is not how Foursquare was intended. All right, third thing, last thing, autonomy is also very important. Some of you might know that from Scrum or other agile methodologies, that it's important that we are, what we're doing, we're not only obliged to do things, that people not only tell us what we need to do, but they provide us a greater goal, and we are individuals and we are able to find our way ourselves. So I think this is a nice analogy. You might know Tom Sawyer, and all of a sudden this painting the fence becomes interesting for the others because he claimed that he's doing it voluntarily. And all of a sudden his friends also wanted to paint the fence until they noticed he tricked them. Dangers with autonomy they are related to badges and all of, more generally, extrinsic motivators, because autonomy means we do something decided by ourselves, while extrinsic motivations like money or badges or anything else can really compromise this autonomy idea. And also, too much autonomy might leverage actually the idea of rules and goals. So it's kind of hard to find the right balance here. Okay, to wrap up, what is gamification? I hope you believe me that it's more than buzz, badges, and awards. I provided a definition you might like or not, but at least you need to consider, I think. Why should you care? I think it's a form of contemporary human-centered design. Press harder! Find a typo, right? Games mastered motivation over the years, and I think it's really worth looking at them, how they achieved that high engagement. And last but not least, when you want to approach it, consider meaning mastery and autonomy. Don't just apply points and badges and stuff like that. Be wary of the side effects. Don't underestimate side effects. And learn about game design, and I think most importantly is really talk to game designers or even team up with game designers. And the first step might be to take a look at one of these books, which I find really, really good. The left ones are more a little bit academic, but still provide a good overview on game design in general, while the others are dealing with gamification, or how games actually can make a better world. All right, so I'm at the end. Here are some talks I stole material from, and you might consider watching them too. So are there any questions? Yeah.
So you say you look to game design for ways to engage users, motivate users. So in the gaming industry, there's this whole debate going on about casual games.
Mm-hmm.
Casual games versus skillful.
Yeah, for core gamers.
Yeah, core games, and also there's serious games like the way let's gamify learning.
Mm.
And as far as I know, they have really kicked off in a way.
Mm.
So is there anything reflecting this debate in the gamification?
Okay, the question is if the debate of casual games versus core games and serious games somehow reflects in gamification. And first I have to say I don't see a good reason other than academic reasons to draw a border between serious games and gamification. I mean, you could say gamification must not be a game, otherwise it's a serious game, but this is kind of an artificial thing for me. So I also would answer that this discussion swaps over to gamification automatically, right? And I haven't given any very specific advice here because it's a beginner's talk. But when you really consider to gamify things, what I say is take a look at these discussions that are contemporarily going on, and take a look at what game designers learned over the last 30 or so, 40 years, and try to learn from it. Don't start from scratch, as we are just right now doing, right? Does that answer the question for some extent? Okay, good. Other questions? All right, so feel free to ask me later if you like. Thanks for listening, and thanks for participating. I'm sorry that it didn't turn out better. I need to come up with something else next time. Still, you will get some prizes, okay, for participating. Thanks.